On behalf of everyone, it's my pleasure to introduce Deva Prabhuji. It's been long coming. We've been waiting for this opportunity. So Prabhuji started and leads the Bhakti Center at Ypsilanti, which is near our University of Michigan. Uh, Pretty much all of us from University of Michigan have grown listening to Prabhuji, attending Kirtan by Prabhuji, and definitely honoring the prasadam that he lovingly makes for us for the classes and during the feasts on in the festivals. Personally, for me, every interaction with Prabhuji, I take a lot of inspiration, and his words are very close to my heart. We always look up to you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your time and association. Uh, yeah, over to you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Very sweet of you, Kishan. Thank you. We miss you. It's not the same without you here. A very sweet, soft-hearted, service-minded person. And U of M somehow, there's this way I tease Indian devotees sometimes because there's that chapter title in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. So you come to America, you come to a top school, you've attained the supreme according to one vision of the goal of life. But then, as we see it at U of M so often, those kind of cream of the crop of your own country, you come and somehow become a little disillusioned. Siddhari Prabhu is kind of the first person I saw that happen to, and then Shamananda Krishna Prabhu, who's going to be opening the Grand Rapids Temple 2 weeks from now, same situation, robotics and machine learning, AI before anyone called it AI. And he was just on the fast track towards superstardom within the secular world, but he's totally disillusioned. Like, this is all I'm going to be doing? Playing with robots the rest of my life? Where's the love? Where's the real thing? And then that recognition, oh my gosh, my DNA, my home culture is the supreme, the kind of most intimate, most intricate, ultimate expression of that culture of love and God consciousness, which is expressed in various ways throughout the world. So always enjoy spending time with devotees who've had that angle and that experience of the two sides in such a pointed way. So I'll begin with a little Mangalacharan, and then we'll get into some verses. And I'd like to leave some room for discussion as well. So Kishan, do we normally close in about an hour or so? Like 8:30 is a good stopping place.
Yeah, sounds good, Prabhuji. Yes.
Okay, so I'll leave 15 minutes at least or so there at the end for us to have some discussion and churning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nar- Narayanam Namaskritya Narom Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Prayestu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Prasadena Tadrupa Savanir Nayam Balapi Kurute Shastram Drisra Brajavilasani Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Gayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurundinataranam Param Ananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Very happy to be with you all again. Thank you for inviting me to study the Bhagavatam. It's a wonderful way to start the weekend. And we're studying a favorite section of mine, as I've shared earlier with some of you, this 13th chapter of the first canto. And I was just on a road trip to see my Guru Maharaj in Atlanta. And so my wife and I, we have this habit of, excuse me, we have this habit of listening to the Mahabharata on our road trips. It's a nice, we'll listen to a chapter or two, and it's such a thrilling narrative. And you all, I think many of you were born in India, and the Mahabharata was like your Power Rangers or Batman. Your superheroes were actual pure devotees. And mine were just imaginary characters who were doing questionable things also. But you all got to look up to Arjuna and Bhishma and Draupadi and Vidura, and it was really eye-opening when I first listened to the Mahabharata after having read Bhagavad Gita as it is from Srila Prabhupada maybe 4 times before I actually heard the whole narration of the Mahabharata, and it was like mind blown. Suddenly the first chapter becomes the most important chapter. It's the one if I'm out on book distribution and I'm handing the book new to somebody who's never seen it, like I would have, Bhagavad Gita, I've only heard of it vaguely, then I'll tell them skip the first chapter because it's going to distract them. So many names, you can't pronounce any of them. You've never heard of any of them. You never hear of them again in the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. So it seems unimportant from the philosophical side. But Krishna consciousness and bhakti is not about philosophy. The philosophy is the floor that we stand on, but the purpose of the floor is not just to stand, it's to dance, it's to cook, it's to laugh and play with our loved ones. The philosophy supports the feelings, and the feelings are what matter in bhakti. And that so beautifully comes out a vision of the narrative when you realize the importance of all those names that these cousins, friends, and enemies, and all of them are now in front of him, and he's facing the consequence of having to be on the battlefield with all of these different relationships, the feelings that are present there, thinking about having to point arrows at his grandfather. And Jesus Christ had to accept his own death, which is itself something to celebrate and offer obeisances to, the Christian faith, the death of Christ, him accepting that fate for the sake of others. It's worshipable. But if given the choice, would you rather accept your own death or the death of a loved one? Right? Which would you rather do? And then, not just the death of a loved one, you're going to be the one that kills them. This is Arjuna's cross. This is what he's being asked to bear by Krishna. So, offering obeisances to Arjuna as he's lamenting and his palms are sweating so intensely he can't even hold his bow. What kind of warrior can't even hold the bow? And why? Because of all those names in the first chapter, because of all that went on before that is offered by Srila Vyasadeva in the Mahabharata. And so it's going to be very hard to only talk about this chapter for 35 minutes or so because there's so much, and you all would know even more kind of intimately and intricately the details of these narratives, all that's gone on, so that now Dhṛtarāṣṭra is finally quitting home. Dhṛtarāṣṭra is finally getting the message after how many times? I'm not sure in the serial versions of the Mahabharata that you may be more familiar with, how much they did or did not emphasize how often Dhṛtarāṣṭra would understand what to do and not do it. Dhṛtarāṣṭra for me is the most relatable character in the Mahabharata. Everyone wants to be Bhima or Arjuna or Vidura, Jai Shri Krishna, but actually we're all and then when we think about the bad guys, we think about, Duryodhana, like just the evil, awful demon. And we say, well, I don't want to be the demon, so I want to be the good guy, Arjuna or Bhima or Yudhisthira. But actually, we all start out as Dhritarashtra. We know what's good. We're not trying to be bad. We don't like bad things, but because of that weakness of the heart, because of that conditioning towards comfort and that blindness, Dhritarashtra is blind, born blind. That's why he can't be the emperor, although he ends up kind of being the emperor anyway. Born blind. We're born with this kind of defect that prevents the better part of ourselves from being able to win, from being able to fight and conquer over the weaker part of ourselves. Dhritarashtra again and again and again loses that battle. And his best friend in the fight, the one that stands by him always and until the end in this chapter, and stands for his true best interest, right? Your real friends are the ones that will tell you the hard things also. Dhritarashtra's real best friend is Vidura. And Vidura, at a point, had left the situation because Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, who's the real one pushing the entire intrigue against the Pandavas and forcing the Battle of Kurukshetra to take place, forcing his father to, we say force Dhritarashtra giving in to the demands of his son that this war be fought so that they can try to keep the kingdom for themselves. At one point, for the 100th time, Vidura is trying to check Duryodhana. He's trying to tell him, stop being an idiot. Stop being a fool. Stop denying the obvious. Stop ignoring your elders. And finally, once in your life, be a little self-aware and accept that Yudhisthira deserves to have a kingdom. In fact, he deserves the entire kingdom, but at least you should give him something, some jurisdiction to rule. And of course, Duryodhana famously says, I will not give enough land for them to even drop one pin inside of. Nothing. Not a speck of dust will I let the Pandavas rule over. Because he knows with that one speck of dust, they can make a palace of gold. That's the Krishna magic. He knows. And this is what's so, we have to pay attention to this. They know. Duryodhana knows. Dhritarashtra knows. And still, somehow or other, they're not able to do what is right. And so Duryodhana, in his envy, he calls Vidura a very awful name, Dasiput, in a kind, religious, respectable assembly of the Kauravas, so-called respectable. Many bad things have happened in this assembly by this point. But anyway, amongst self-respecting, decent company in public, Duryodhana uses this very ugly name. In English, basically, it's like calling someone a bastard and doing that in a palace, a public setting of respectability. And so at that, Vidura, that's his moment. He takes his cue. Arjuna, his austerity is to stay. Vidura's austerity is to go away. So in Krishna consciousness, we can't stereotype things. It's not that you always stay, as Arjuna is obliged to do. Arjuna, you stay and fight. That's what Krishna said. But Vidura is celebrated for walking away. So which for which? That takes Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, prayer on the inside, talking to Krishna, asking, please guide, please help. But here for Vidura, this was the moment. This was the sign. This was the signal. These people are hopeless. They want to go to hell, let them go to hell. I have to go find Krishna. I don't, I give up. I surrender. I've tried and failed, and I accept that. Now it's time to go find Krishna. So Vidura goes on his pilgrimage. And his pilgrimage, we now have immortalized as the third, fourth, and part of the fifth canto. Vidura, this is how we know that his running away was running towards Krishna. He wasn't running away from Maya like Arjuna would have been if he left the battlefield. He wanted to go towards Krishna. And so he went on pilgrimage and he found first Uddhava, and that's a different point of discussion, but then Maitreya. And he has this beautiful conversation with Maitreya, which we could spend lots of time talking about. And maybe if we stay vigilant in our studies together, we'll get there one day. Third canto. We look forward to that. And as we hear now in the opening of this chapter 13, all of that was to appreciate the context. Because again, the Bhagavad Gita, a nice book about philosophy, but it is Bhagavad Gita is the song of God. What is God always going to be singing about? Only one thing and one thing only. Not you're not the body. Not be a vegetarian. Not learn how to breathe good. What is God going to sing about? God's going to sing about love. The Bhagavad Gita is a love song first. then it is a philosophical dissertation. But we don't know it's a love song unless we know, why does Krishna love Arjuna? Why does Arjuna love Krishna? Who are all these people on the battlefield? Why is this so hard for Krishna's friend Arjuna to fight? He's fought so many battles against so many more formidable foes. He's fought the demigods and had no problem. So, what to speak of? What's happening here? And in that, we appreciate Vidura's return after the pilgrimage. The narrative to, I heard one sadhu say, to study something means to understand the context in with which it is happening. So, to give an example of the importance of this, say you see some adult chiding some child. They're like wagging their finger. The child, maybe they're crying. The adult is using some heavy tone, some harsh language. What's your immediate thought when you see that situation?
Probably the child did a mistake.
Yeah, probably the child did a mistake. Probably that's their parent or some auntie or uncle. But what if it was a stranger? And what if the child has never met this person before and out of nowhere this adult is just coming over and chiding the child? Then you'd feel very differently about what's happening, right? If it was a total stranger, then you might think, I actually need to help this child. This child might be in trouble with this adult. This adult is not their well-wisher. But on the other side, if it's their parent, if it's their auntie or uncle, then you understand, okay, this child probably did some mistake and they need to hear it. And so context matters, right? The immediate event is not what we can't look at that alone and understand what's going on, appreciate what's happening. So that's why I shared this little preamble to appreciate Dhritarashtra is quitting home. Finally, Dhritarashtra is getting the message. But why? For many reasons, but one of them is that Vidura has grown spiritually. Progress is eternal. Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says like this, progress is eternal. So it's not that Vidura is a pure devotee. Now there's nowhere else to go. Now there's nothing else to develop, nothing else to become. Even Vidura, who's seeing Krishna eye to eye, Krishna's coming and staying at his home, right? You all know that episode famously. Duryodhana is making this big press junket for Krishna, come and eat at my table. Watch everybody watch you eat at my table. And Krishna says, no thanks, I don't want to eat at your table. I'll go to Vidura's house. I'll go to his hut rather than eat at your palace. So Vidura's personal loving associate of Krishna already, and still there's something to develop. There's something more for him to attain because love is progress. Progress is eternal. And so Vidura has gone on pilgrimage, and now his potency has been refined. And finally, with the circumstance of Dhritarashtra having been everything now taken from him, this time when Vidura speaks, Dhritarashtra is able to listen. So we'll touch the first text. Sutta Uvacha. Vidurastirtha yatrayam maitrayad atmano gatim gyatvaghā dashtinam puram tayavhapta vivitsita. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. Cantos of the Bhagavatam are dedicated to this conversation. So it's not fair that this one verse, we're just going to leave it at that. But Vidura has heard from the great sage Maitreya. They've had sadhu sangha. They've exchanged the highest expression of love in their mutual affection for Krishna. It's what we're doing right now. What a great way to start our weekend. Everyone else thinks weekend, I get to sleep in. I get to go have my food at my nice restaurant I like to go to, go watch a movie, go enjoy myself. Also fine. Also, some of that should be there. Relaxation, recreation, that's a part of a good life. But some Krishna Katha is always part of a good day. So kudos to each of you for being here on a Saturday. Sutta Goswami opens like this. Vidura, remember, Shukadev's not even speaking yet. This is first canto. So Shukadev's speaking in second canto. Right now it's Sutta Goswami, which that's a whole other point to discuss. But Vidura comes and everyone, oh, how happy. Imagine all the strife that this family has been through, right? How many people on whatever side they're on, we all know, but we all know family is family. That's why Arjuna had such a hard time with this war. So many loved ones have been lost now. And what to speak of the children and Abhimanyu, just the grief that all of them have gone through. And Vidura walks in the door one day. He's an old man. He's been out there in the wild for a year or more. What could have happened? Where could he have gone? Who knows? But none of them are ever thinking they'll see him again. It's like somebody's come back from the dead. Vidura's been resurrected. He walks through that door. For a moment, all the grief, all the pain, all the difficulty of this last 6 months and the battle and the loss of life and the agony on both sides in this family, everyone feels that just lifted away, like an ice cube on your neck on a hot day. Just, oh, such relief. When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhisthira, his younger brothers, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas, and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period. So appreciate the joy that flows into the hearts of all the devotees. And then this very famous verse comes. Bhavad vida bhagavatas tirta bhuta swayam vibho tirti kurvanti tirtani swantastena gadhabrita. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Such a sweet verse. Prabhupada says, the personality of Godhead is omnipresent by his diverse potencies everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. So the devotees are those light bulbs that come and illuminate the darkness of our life, the darkness of our homes. And Prabhupada is himself one such very powerful light bulb that managed to go into many rooms and many houses. And I'm thinking of this very sweet verse in the 10th canto describing how Aghasura's body, the giant snake who Krishna entered inside of to save the cowherd boys, Aghasura's body became a playground for the Vrajvasis. His bones, his skeleton, you can imagine this like giant rib cage of a snake became a playground for the Vrajvasis after Krishna had gone inside. This, it's a dead body, it's a corpse, and of a demon. But because Krishna's been inside, then it becomes a place of like a park, this beautiful place to gather for the Vrajvasis. And today, New York City, which if you ever look at the skyline of New York City, looks like something like the body of a snake. It's this long, kind of undulating rib, just like the dragon or something, this big kind of reptile body cutting across the horizon. Today, devotees from all over the world will be going to New York City to celebrate Jagannath's Rath Yatra, the 50th anniversary of our Srila Prabhupada taking that Rath Yatra cart down Fifth Avenue in New York City in 1976, practically 10 years to the day prior to when he arrived homeless in New York, having no one and nothing to orient him in that place. 10 years later, bringing Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra each down on their own cart with thousands of devotees from all over the planet down the most important street in the city, Fifth Avenue. It was a miracle. And why? Because of the power of the pure devotees. Because of the power of the Viduras and the Prabhupads, here we are. And it's not what is one of the most important things about Srila Prabhupada is that the saints of our tradition, the saints of our culture and community are not reserved to existing thousands of years ago. It's not only Vidura, it's Prabhupada to 50 years ago and his followers today. The saints can be present now also. And I'll share a little personal anecdote of that a little later on in the chapter. But this is a verse that you'll hear quoted often and for good reason, because this is where real holiness is derived. It's even said by the acharyas that and the Shastra that the holy places actually become the dhams themselves become contaminated because of the presence of so much pop, which is shed by the kind of like common pilgrims that go there for some punya. They go there to shed karma, and so the Dham obliges. The Dham accepts their karma, they take snan, they go on yatra, they walk around, and the Dham takes their sin. But that, where does that sin go then? It kind of accumulates like a kind of subtle trash in the ether. But because of the presence of the holy people, the sadhus who come, and with their potency of relationship to Sri Krishna, that's what actually purifies the Dham and cleans the Dham. What to speak of these places that we find ourselves in today. So much to say about the sadhus, but we'll continue. So very interesting. This verse always stood out to me. So Yudhisthira, he's asking all kinds of questions. Oh, Mahatma Vidura, you're here. How wonderful. I'm so happy. We never thought we'd see you again. And now you're effulgent. You've gone on this pilgrimage. And please tell us. And please, what is the news? What is the news? And we all, well, maybe you don't know, but you probably know the news is not good, right? Not good. The Yadus are now killing themselves in a civil war, fratricidal war. There's no one else to fight, so now they have to fight each other. And that is all Krishna's arrangement and another discussion for another day. But Krishna is departing, the Yadus are departing. Not good, not happy. So compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. They've been through enough, right? They've been through it all. We don't need to tell them. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come of their own accord. This is something I've noted about Indians in general. They all follow Vidura's example. You all are so good at not talking about bad stuff. You all are so good at just being polite, and you have to, if you're communicating and trying to figure something out, you have to learn the subtleties. Because a pious, polite Indian person, they'll never say the bad thing straight. If a couple is divorced, Mataji is living somewhere else. They're not divorced. Mataji is staying there for some time. How much time? Forever, but sometime, maybe just tomorrow she's coming home. It's very beautiful. It's very sweet. For Americans, it's hard to get used to. It's not our way. And there's value to both sides, of course. But anyway, for Vidura, bad news comes of its own accord. I'm not going to say that they're divorced. I'm not going to say that the Yadavas have killed each other and Krishna's gone. We're not going to say that. You'll find that out in your own way when it's time. Such news, especially, will come of its own accord. Let's just be peaceful and happy for tonight. My god sister, she's a very good astrologer, and she talks about this. People, she has a little funny, crude joke. She says some people they become so neurotic they won't fart without checking their chart. Right? They become so neurotic about their astrology that just every little thing I have to know. Is it the right time? What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? And a good astrologer can look at your chart and tell you when you're going to die. And she's had that experience before that she sees, oh, your child is going to die soon. You're going to die in 3 years. You're having a baby now, but you're not going to be here to raise it. And does she share that information or not? Usually she doesn't. Why? Because what will it do to the person? They won't be able to enjoy the 2 years they do have with the child because they'll be too preoccupied with the idea of the death and the loss and the not being there, that they won't be able to be there while they can be. And so Vidura very wisely, there's no need to tell this bad information. Bad news will come of its own accord. And that stood out to me my first time studying this chapter. This was one of the verses in my own place, in my own life, and coming into Krishna consciousness. This verse was like that spoke to something meaningful for me. So then we carry forward, and Vidura starts to give the sauce to his brother Dhṛtarāṣṭra. And this is, as I mentioned, you've studied the Mahabharata, you know the story. So you know how many times has Vidura had this conversation? How many times has he said these same things to Dhṛtarāṣṭra? But now, finally, that special window has come. Vidura's potency has grown. His own realization, his own conviction, his own connection to Krishna, he's deepened it. We want to preach, we have to have something to share. We have to have something ourselves if we want to give it to others. So Vidura has preached to Dhṛtarāṣṭra so many times, but this morning he chanted very good rounds, right? He did good study of the Bhagavatam. And now Dhṛtarāṣṭra is able to hear, right? Vidura had his sadhana of going on pilgrimage and taking that walk to see Krishna, to find Krishna. And how did he find Krishna? Through the Katha of the Sadhu, Maitreya Muni. This is Krishna's favorite way to appear. And so now he's bringing that back. What he's received, he can now share. He has $100, he can solve Dhṛtarāṣṭra's $10 problem. And he's speaking to Dhṛtarāṣṭra. And for Dhṛtarāṣṭra's part, he has also grown in that he's been forced by time, as we're hearing from Vidura. Time is pushing on Dhṛtarāṣṭra, pushing on Dhṛtarāṣṭra. And finally, this circumstance, this confluence, what couldn't move before is moving now. And here we are ourselves, whatever we may be trying for in life. Just see our Srila Prabhupada. We were hearing from Mother Sukavaha on Thursday. We had our Ekadasi morning Katha on Thursday. It's something I did like to invite you all also. I'll send, I mean, I think Kishan, you might already have the links, but we do our Tuesday, Thursday Bhagavatam classes for the Harmony Collective. But we've started also on Ekadasis to try to bring senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples, to come speak to us and hear their realizations. Very sweet. And so we had Mother Sukavaha on this last Thursday, and somebody had mentioned that they want to get initiation, and she kind of jokingly said, I want my name to change. And she said it in a sweet way, like it's very honest. We want to feel like we're making progress. We want to feel like something's happening in spiritual life. And so I'll get my new name and I'll have my special, designation now. I got my degree, I got my Harinam initiation. But Mother Sukava, she said, don't forget that Srila Prabhupada met his spiritual master and didn't take initiation until a decade and a half later. Right? That's Srila Prabhupada. And then the instruction that he got the first day that he met his spiritual master, he didn't actually fulfill that first instruction until 50 years later. Don't forget that. It takes time. Even our Srila Prabhupada, even Vidura, it takes time for the message to find the moment, right? Prabhupada came. It's impossible for, just as much as I will never understand why, on some level, I will never understand that softness and sensitivity that you all have towards difficult things, that ability that you have to be polite and to restrain yourself from saying the thing straightforward. Just as I will never quite understand that as an American, you all will never quite be able to understand as Indians the moment that Prabhupada came to America, what it meant with the hippies and the civil rights movement for Black people and the Vietnam War, where Americans were being sent over to Vietnam for no reason except corporate, oligarch interests. And this was the first time that that was being so clear in the world. Like today, we know war. Why do we fight wars? So that somebody can get rich and everybody else can be miserable. Everyone knows that today. But in 1965, no one knew that because we just fought World War II. The bad guys were defeated, the good guys won. We're the good guys. This like intoxicated feeling of the perfection of humanity being American society, it's just, I can't describe it to you. And that's when Prabhupada came. That was the moment to come and say, no, there is no happiness in this place. There's just the temporary distraction from suffering. And so Vidura, in his same way, came at that perfect moment for Dhṛtarāṣṭra with the same message he always had, but his own potency had developed, and Dhṛtarāṣṭra was in just the right place to finally receive it. So Vidura is saying, despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live, even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. Isn't it the truth? No matter what we want and think, the body's betraying us. The body is failing. It is an incompatible situation, as Prabhupada says. It is not fit for our soul. I like this phrasing of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's dear God brother. He says, you don't know your own value, and that's the problem. We don't know our own value as a soul. And so we try to find some value that looks valuable enough related to the body. Let me find some prestige within a professional position. Let me have some wealth, a nice house, a nice car, pretty clothes. Let me get a little touch up, a nice haircut, maybe a little plastic surgery. Let me find some value within this body, and it's all futile. The body is going to fail us. The body is going to betray us, all on its own. We don't have to help it. No one else has to tell it. Built to fail. Another American invention that was actually, Krishna was the first to planned obsolescence. Maybe you all know this if you're any engineers out there, but in the 60s and 70s, the American auto manufacturers, they decided in their wisdom that Americans will forever buy American cars. They will never buy foreign cars. So we need to start making a car that doesn't last as long so that we can get them to buy more cars. So they started to design cars that would fail at a certain point. Instead of trying to build the best car they could always, they started building cars that had an expiration date. And that's why Toyota and Honda were able to come in and take over the American market so that by the time I was buying cars, starting to drive in the early 2000s, everyone knew don't buy an American car. They're junk. Buy a Toyota, buy a Honda, buy a Nissan. Don't buy an American car. So the plan backfired. But Ford and GM's plan of planned obsolescence, Krishna beat them to it an eternity ago. He gave us these cars that were built to fail so that we would buy a different product, not so we would buy the same product. The point is to stop buying the bad car. Stop buying into the body and start investing in the soul. Start believing that that is the real direction of what is good for me, what is safe for me, what is fulfilling for me, what is happy for me, what is worthy of me. The body is unworthy of my attention. I am better than my body. When we start to appreciate that, then we can really use the body as a vehicle. It's not that we hate the body. It's not that we resent the body, but to appreciate the body in its context. It's not the end all, and it will end. It will fail me completely at one day. I will have to give it up. And so to not over invest in it, treat it as the intermediary that it is. And so Dhṛtarāṣṭra, he's not from Vidura, he's getting very heavy renunciate language because he's at the fine, this is the last stop on the train before it's over. The ride is over and it's another ride around again, another circle through samsara if he doesn't get it now. So please get it now. Please pay attention, my dear brother. I've only ever said one thing to you, and I'm saying it again. Please listen. And finally, Dhṛtarāṣṭra does. And so what happens? Nard Muni comes, and I didn't select a verse out of there, so forgive me for that. But Vidura gets his message across, and he says we have to leave. No, no this is something you learn as a in devotional service with conditioned souls. I'm a temple president, community director at the Harmony Collective. So we have Goshal, we have temple, and we have a school for children. We go on Harinam. We try to do all the things that Prabhupada indicated were part of a robust Krishna conscious culture village. And I've learned over the years, when somebody wants to do something, that's the time to do it. Because tomorrow, Maya may have come. Actually, without question, Maya will have come tomorrow. So the time is now. If somebody wants to give the donation, doesn't matter, you don't need it that day. Doesn't matter you have enough bags of rice. Tomorrow, they don't want to give that bag of rice. And so today is the day to take it. If for no other reason than for their benefit. But if you need that $100 tomorrow and you go ask them for it, they wanted to give it yesterday and you said, "No, Prabhuji, I don't have time. I gotta go. We'll take care of it. Thank you, very kind." 2 days from now, they won't be so kind. The times will have changed, the conditioning will have shifted, the seasons, the layout will have been different, and they may or may not then want to do that seva. And so this is a lesson of this chapter. Vidura says, he sees, Dhṛtarāṣṭra heard me. Finally, time to go. No time to wait. You, Gandhari, let's go. You, me, her, and he takes them. He doesn't trust them to go by themselves. He goes with them. You, me, we're going. We'll walk to the hundi. I'll watch you. You put that $100 in the box. Okay, very good. I know that was very hard for you. Congratulations. You did some devotional service. All glories. So Vidura, the time is now in Krishna consciousness. You know that little inspiration comes up. I was in Vrindavan. Anyway, I'll pause. I won't tell one of my little anecdotes because I want to respect you all's time as well. But you know for yourselves, you have some inspiration to do some service, and then yesterday, the day after, or the day 2, 3 days later, you think, what was that thing I wanted to do for Krishna? I know I wanted to do a very nice thing for Krishna. What was that? What was the thing I thought about doing that now I can't even remember, and surely that means I'm not going to do. So when the inspiration comes, as much as possible, it'd be nice to chant some japa. Just pick up your bead bag, one round, Hari Bol. Just, it'd be nice to study something. Just pick up the Bhagavad Gita, 3 minutes, better than no minutes. 30 seconds, better than no seconds. So the time is now when we feel some inspiration in Krishna consciousness. Take advantage, do it. Vidura is showing us that. Come on, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, the time is now. So they go, they're gone. Yudhisthira wakes up, they're gone. Sanjaya is devastated. Yudhisthira's devastated. Narad Muni comes and says, don't be sad. This is how it goes for everyone. But especially, you should be happy because they haven't died. They haven't ran away from you. They haven't gone to commit suicide. They've gone with Vidura to a holy place to perfect their lives in their old age. So you should be happy for that. And it's interesting because, well, this is my last kind of framing here. So they perfect their lives. Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Gandhari, they enter into the fire of Gyan Yoga and they peel back the layers of their conditioning, and eventually his body goes up in the flames of realization physically. His body combusts, and Gandhari enters into that fire along with him. And Vidura sees that, and he has mixed feelings. Vidurastu tar ascharyam nishamya kurunandana harsha shoka yutas tasmad ganta tirtha nishevaka. We see this phrasing, harsha, shoka, delight and grief. We see it throughout the Bhagavatam, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, usually around mundane things. But this is a pure devotee watching somebody become self-realized best he could. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. He's happy and he's sad. He's happy and he's sad. We have to get used to this in Krishna consciousness, and this is the lesson of the entire chapter. Vidura, happy and sad. Yudhisthira, happy and sad. Dhṛtarāṣṭra, confused and enlightened. It's we oftentimes take Krishna consciousness to be a kind of black and white experience. I'm pure, I'm impure. I'm conditioned, I'm liberated. But what we see actually is that even the great souls, the Mahatmas, the Viduras, they still deal with natural emotion. It's a very big topic. But he's sad that his brother's dead. His brother's gone now, and he's sad. His Prabhupada also tells us in the purport, his brother didn't become a pure devotee. He only attained liberation. He's also sad for that. He's happy. He's delightful. How can he be sad that he didn't become a pure devotee and also delighted that he attained liberation? Because emotions are mixed. When my mother passed away, harsha shoka. Who could, who, when you're in fourth grade and you're learning about emotions and you hear about death, death means you should be sad. Was I sad when my mother passed away? Of course. But I was also delighted. My dad doesn't have to care for a cancer patient anymore. My mother doesn't have to sit in a bed completely invalid for another day and another week and another month. Thank God. She's liberated now. She's free of that terrible condition that her body had finally gone to. And her soul can now move on. She passed away with Giriraj on her chest. She passed away with Jagannath's Maha on her body. She's okay. I know that. Krishna let that happen because that was a desire of mine. I was so grateful for it. So Harsha Shoka, I'm sad. My mom's gone. But I'm so happy my mom is gone with Krishna by her side at the very end. And now her next destination is surely something uh, improved from what this was. So, yes, me, I'm a conditioned soul. We might say, fine, that's okay for me to feel this mixiness, but also Vidura, but also Yudhisthira. And so the way in which natural human emotion is, it's actually the right of the soul. AI and artificial intelligence, decision making, discernment, that's one side of the soul, but the robots can do that part. What will the robots never do? The robots will never feel. They will never feel anything, and therefore we will always be distinct from them for that. And for that, bhaktas are special. Within the yoga community, all the other yogis, they want to get rid of their emotions. Emotions are a problem. Emotions are something to ignore. Okay, I have them, but who cares? Right? Uh, what is that? Tarto Brahma Jignasa and Aham Brahmasmi. I was trying to come up with that little Aham Brahmasmi, right? Emotions, who cares? You're not my mom, you're not my dad, you're not my aunt, you're not my uncle, you're not my kid, you're not my country, you're not my world. Aham Brahmasmi. Put it all aside. The bhaktas are unique. What is special about bhakti yoga? It is the yoga of emotion. Dhruva's having a temper tantrum and he gets to see God face to face. The yogis sit for years trying to ignore their emotions. Instead, Dhruva gets supremely mad, supremely jealous, supremely vengeful. He gets so vengeful, Vishnu comes. This is the magic of bhakti. It's a big topic, but I wanted to make sure that we got to highlight that dynamic within this chapter. Bhakti is the yoga of emotion. And so Vidura and Yudhisthira and Dhṛtarāṣṭra, he's ashamed, he's embarrassed. Finally, he sees it. What an idiot I've been. Let me go to Krishna, feeling like an idiot. Let me go to Krishna. How many of us have done that before? I'll raise my hand. I could think of a decade worth of examples. Making a mistake, making a fool of myself, and in that mood, having a profound experience of Krishna because I was connected. That emotion gives me a reason, some bhava to go to Krishna with. Little b bhava brings us to big B bhava. We will never get to big B bhava, Vraj bhava, before we learn how to deal with little b bhava and bring that to the altar. So I'll pause there, friends. As you can see, that was hard for me to keep things short. It's such a beautiful chapter. But I'll pause there and see, are there any reflections, comments, questions we can churn together?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think, as always, it's like the best we can always get. So wonderful to hear from you, Prabhuji. I'm still trying to frame my question, but I think since everyone is taking time, I can go ahead and with my like unframed question. Apologies for that. So my question was, so it's always like it's like a more practical question, Prabhuji, is that when we listen to Krishna Katha or
Mm.
like to our sadhana, I feel we are at a platform, a higher platform. But then as the day progresses, like go
Yeah.
to work or
Mm.
university, it's not the same. But
Mm.
I would ideally want to be at the same platform, even when I'm like doing the mundane activities, because at
Yeah.
times when I reflect, I see that, oh, I should not have reacted in that manner, or I could have
Mm.
done things differently during the day. So, uh, what would you suggest that we always be in a higher platform and see things differently?
Yeah, nice question, Kishan. Natural question. And this, I've been invited to go to the Sadhu Sangha, which is going to be in, or not Sadhu Sangha, but the Sangha Initiative, which is like Sadhu Sangha for the youth in America. And I was thinking I'm actually going to be flying into Pittsburgh, but then we're driving down to New Vrindavan. So is going to be, 75, 100 young people, like 18 to 25, and most of whom are born in families of devotees. And so they've been around, but they have, their own ideas and they're learning and finding their way in the world. So one of the talks that I'll be giving there is imperfect perfection. We'll be talking about this imperfect perfection and this false standard that we all kind of take on, where we imagine that we will be able to stay at the mountaintop forever. And we actually don't see it. We don't see that happen anywhere. And even I'll take us to the very tippy top of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? If you've read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see that he moves in a cycle. Mahaprabhu's psyche moves in a cycle. At times, and we could say, actually the low is the high for Mahaprabhu. When he becomes very low, when he forgets he's God, when he is in the depths of Radharani's emotion as a bhakta, trying to find Krishna and not seeing him anywhere. That's his ecstasy at the very bottom. And he doesn't stay there. That he's God. That's his whole project. And he fails to stay at that peak of the low of his desired experience. He floats back to the top and he remembers, oh, I'm a devotee. I have my Sangha. I'm here in Jagannath Puri. I'm going to go take my bath. I'm going to have some prasadam. I'm going to go see Haridas Thakur. He, at moments, although not so much in Puri, he remembers he's God, and he takes on Nrsimha Bhav, he takes on Balaram Bhav, he takes on different expressions of Bhagavan. But eventually he cycles back to that place of depth that the whole project of his Leela as Mahaprabhu is about. So for ourselves also, life moves in cycles. Life moves in cycles of the day, the week, the month, the year, the lifetime, and to embrace the cycle and to recognize the natural flow of it saves us a lot of aggravation, saves us a lot of unnecessary mental harassment, kicking ourselves for not staying at the peak experience when we're sitting in the office. If you could feel in the office like you feel right now, what would be special about the Bhagavatam? It's not about you. It's about the Bhagavatam. It's about the Holy Dham. And you're not going to be in the Holy Dham every day. You're not going to be with the Bhagavatam at every moment. Even Srila Prabhupada wasn't. You think Prabhupada felt the same standing in the airport line as he did sitting in Radha Damodar temple? Come on. No, of course not. So don't hold yourself to that false standard. It's just a silly kind of it's a very Christian idea actually. This like Protestant thing that I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I accept Jesus and now everything forever is the same way and I'm perfect and everything else is bad. It's it's a weird idea that doesn't really fit within the Vedic paradigm, but in modernity it all gets washed together. So just give up on that false idea of perfection. Now, all that said, can we be better? Yes, always. We should always be spiraling, whether you want to think of the spiral upward or the spiral downward. We should always be spiraling in that cycle. The circle comes around again, right? Vidura, this cycle of talking to Dhritarashtra, and finally he reaches the nadir point, the depth. Finally, how many times he's been through this cycle? You do something stupid, I tell you it was stupid. You do something stupid. I tell you it was stupid. I go back. I figure it out again. I come back and tell you. The cycle has happened so many times. And finally, the fruit of that cycle is we just read in this chapter. So, can you improve? Can you refine? Of course. Both are true. That your idea of perfection is probably a false standard to stay in some perfect way always. But also we can always be progressing. And so I appreciate something that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu said a few years ago when he was here at the Harmony Collective. He said we need to learn to make our lows higher. We need to learn how to improve the way in which we deal with difficult situations. So are you going to feel bad some days? Are you going to feel low some days? Of course. You're not going to be at peak sadhana, 3:30 in the morning, 32 rounds, all the chapters, all the verses, all the puja. It's just not going to happen. But on those days when you're feeling a little low, do you still chant some focused rounds? Do you still go sit in front of your altar for two good rounds instead of just all your rounds kind of like rolling them through your beads as you like also checking email and driving to work, just kind of like vegging out? Do you find some way to hold yourself to a kind of minimum? If we worry about a better minimum, it naturally raises the standard of what becomes high. So that would be my general advice, is to just be realistic about holding a better minimum for yourself. You're at work, moments come up, they press on you, ideas come in, feelings come. It's okay when the feelings come. Do I act on the feeling? Or do I act based on the insight of that feeling? That would be an improvement. And if you learn how to improve in that way, then one day you might find that the feelings basically themselves also don't come. Being candid, Prabhupada, New York City Rath Yatras today, and he goes to, at the end of the Rath Yatra, he's talking to one sannyasi, Tripurari Maharaj, and Prabhupada says to Tripurari Maharaj, he's a sannyasi now, just took sannyas, young man, 28 years old. And Prabhupada says to him after the New York City Rath Yatra, did you notice the beautiful women? And Tripurari Maharaj was like, Prabhupada, what do you mean, did I notice the beautiful? So Prabhupada was then saying, they're all Krishnas. This whole city is revolving around these beautiful women. All these men are chasing after them. It is all an expression of Krishna's potency. And Tripurari Maharaj was after that appreciating how Prabhupada was giving him. It seemed like this weird off-color comment, but actually this is how a sannyasi will survive. If you want to hate women for the next 50 years and think that that's sannyas, then good luck. Well, we've seen what happens with that. But if you see, wow, a beautiful woman means Krishna Shakti is beautiful. Krishna is all attractive. His creation is all attractive. If you can start to see that weaving together, then it's better to see the beautiful woman and think she's Krishna's beautiful woman. And surely there comes a day where the beauty doesn't even register because you've seen the most beautiful women, right? Radhika and the gopis and the Vrajvasis. That level of beauty becomes apparent. And so then the other beauty is like not even that impressive anymore. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it's not as compelling. So that upgrade in vision, it takes time and it's layered. It doesn't, it's not just a flip of a light switch. It's not yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Any other reflections or comments or questions by chance?
Uh, Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Maybe I can go next.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think just hearing from you, even from like the very beginning where you mentioned that it's not like they don't know, because very often I had this question that, I mean, all of these people, even in Krishna book, when Kamsa sort of um
Mhm.
talks, so he basically talks Bhagavad Gita.
That's right.
I'm
Right.
yeah, I'm like, they are aware. So I mean, he speaks like he knows everything so well, like it's
Yeah.
very great. He was reflecting very well, right? So I think it makes sense now in perspective when you put things in
Mhm.
perspective, that it's not like they don't know. It's just they just have weak minds. I think I can personally say that for myself too, because there are a lot of times where somehow there's also like that, i- in some situations you also have this memory that maybe you should do this, but then you still do the other thing.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, it's a little conflicting there.
Thank you
But
for highlighting that point.
sorry, Prabhuji, what did you say?
I was just saying thank you for highlighting that again. Yeah, that it's not like Dhṛtarāṣṭra and Duryodhana. They saw the universal form. They know Krishna's God, and still they're like, no, we'll beat him. We'll win the war.
Which also makes me always, like, when I was reading Krishna book, also made me feel, if somebody who knows everything, or who at least realizes things like that, also still is not on the right path, then what hope do I have?
Yeah. Well, you see, you are on the right path though. And that should give a feeling of gratitude as well. There's a saying in the West, there but by the grace of God go I. We see some unfortunate person and we just think it's not I made some good decision, but by God's grace, here I am. Some fortune has come to me. And so be careful because you're not Dhritarashtra. You're not Duryodhana. And it's okay to give ourselves that credit. It's okay also to recognize I could be. I'm not far away from them. But right now, I'm not. And I'm active, I'm taking responsibility for my relationship with Krishna. And Vaisheshika Prabhu, he says beautifully that spiritual life is a series of little victories. We often think of it as and that's kind of to Kishan's question as well. Like we often think of it in these grand moments, and we want the like halo to come over our head and the effulgence to come from the body. And if it's not, then I've failed. But it's really about just those little moments. Did you get out of bed this morning when your alarm went off? Or did you lay around for 20, 30 minutes? Did you, say the first thing that came to your mind when somebody treated you a little roughly? Or did you pause for a moment and take a breath? It's just those little moments, right? Did you read something from the Bhagavad Gita before watching something on YouTube or Netflix? There's those little victories that accumulate over time and make such a huge difference. But nobody can then go back and say, ah, here's Netflix will not come and say, the movie of Roshini's life and wow, that moment where she picked up the Gita is this epic, Hollywood proportion. It's not anything magical. It's just those little moments where we do or we don't. And then we have to kind of cycle through the good or the bad of that little choice, that consequence. But your trend generally is towards and with Krishna. And we should take account for that and appreciate also that the refinement. So as you become a devotee, then is it good enough to just be a devotee and I have my beads on and, Prabhuji said, and so that's what I do? Or are we starting to bring our feelings to Krishna because he wants bhava bhakti, he wants our emotions? Are we really thinking about ourselves as Vraj Bhaktas? Am I just a Vaikuntha, save me, please, God devotee? Or am I a living in Krishna's village, I forgot your God devotee? And are we being responsible to those refinements? That's really where the hope comes in our community, is being responsible to those refined ideas. And then the Dhritarashtra-like mentality of again and again and again forgetting that Krishna is Krishna and that he loves us and that choosing him is always the right choice. We never really have time to get caught up in that cycle. because we lose focus on ourselves, because our sense of service becomes so refined. Who cares what I need? Krishna needs. Prabhupada needs. My Guru Maharaj needs. The devotees need. I don't need to worry about me. I need to worry about them. So our preoccupation, our concern, our neuroticism that you see, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, yeah, I know God is great and Krishna is God, but how could I do this to my son? How could I do this to my own self, my kingdom? I deserve, don't I? That that self-interest, we just transfer the anxiety to the devotees and Krishna. And then that tendency towards weakness, it's kind of dovetailed. We think about their weakness, Krishna's weakness. He needs me. The devotee's weakness. They need me. Guru Maharaj, he needs my support. And then it pulls out the best in us in a very natural way.
Just a follow-up, Prabhuji. Maybe it's slightly off topic, but still I wanted to hear from you about this.
Yeah, go for it.
Prabhuji, although more often than not, although we don't act on all of our thoughts, but we do have, for example, the tendency to find faults in people who are like especially close to us, around us.
Yeah, right.
So although we don't necessarily act on it, at least yet, maybe there's that natural tendency to find faults. So are there any practical ways you deal with it or dealt with, Prabhuji?
The first thing is to remember Krishna's words to Arjuna in second chapter, the end of the second chapter, that the self-realized one is somebody who is acting like the ocean that has many rivers flowing in. It's not that the river stops flowing. And so again, a false standard. It's not that you're not going to have this tough feelings sometimes, just because you have a mean thought. That's the mind. And if you know you're not the mind, then don't identify with the mean thought. And that's okay. It's not a sign of your failure every time it comes up. And devotees do this to themselves. They think, I'm going to do a big vrat for Purushottam Mass, and then I'm going to chant a lot and read a lot and go do a lot of service, and then it might last for like 3 days. They stay in this like bubble of bliss, and then one day something happens and they realize, oh, I'm just fallen conditioned soul again, and they beat themselves up because some little thought came in that they thought spoiled the pristine, pure idea of themselves that they're trying to create. And now there's so much energy and time will be wasted beating yourself up over something that actually isn't you. It's just the mind. It's just the vrittis cycling through. And it's hot today. It's cold today. They're nice to me today. They're not nice to me today. So just take a step back from all of that and don't identify with it as much because it's not you. So if some tough thought comes, okay, it's not me. That's the first thing to remember. Now, also, feelings are never right or wrong. They have insight. This is something to learn. Feelings are never right, and they're never, like I said about my mom passing away. Is it wrong for me to feel happy? Well, some silly person might say yes, but any mature person understands, no, it's not wrong for me to feel happy that she passed away because there's a certain joy in death anyway, and especially for somebody who's been a terminal cancer patient for the last year of their life. There's a release. I'm a spiritual person. There's a joy in that. There's a happiness there. So it's not that the sadness is right and the happiness is wrong. Emotion all has insight. And so if somebody is making you feel some way and you notice that coming up regularly, then take a moment to see, is there something that my psyche is trying to tell me? What is the truth of the situation? And usually what you'll find, like if I feel mad at Vrindavani about something, usually it's just because there's something I should have been doing. And I'd rather get mad at her than be responsible myself. Oh, it's dirty over here. Do I not know where the broom is? Right? Will I die if I pick up a mop? Of course not. But, oh, I do so much over here, so she should do that. That feeling will come, and then I'll pause for a moment and I'll realize I'm just mad because I'm not doing it. I'm vegging out on my phone for 20 minutes instead of going and sweeping the kitchen. So we might find that And oftentimes our tough feelings are really tough feelings towards ourselves. Anger is usually a projection of some feeling of shame or guilt that we have. And that's why you'll hear as we spend lots of time together, I'll come back to this imperfect idea of perfection all the time because it's so deeply connected to our misapplication of spiritual life. We're trying to be something we can never be, to get away from someone who's not as bad as we think they are. We're not nearly as bad as we think we are. And all that shame and guilt that we have is a big distraction from just appreciating Krishna already loves me. Prabhupada has already come in my life. Mahaprabhu is already allowing me to do something in his movement. What more do I want? So you might find, and most of the time find, that your tough feelings are related to some shame and some guilt that you have that is coming out as an anger towards that other person because it's hard to face that shame and guilt that we have. Also, sometimes you will find there's really something about the behavior of this person that needs to change for me. I need the situation to be different. And maybe that means I need to leave. That's what Vidura eventually realized, right? I need to leave. I can't be around this person. In modern language, they call it boundaries. Vidura set a boundary. I'm walking out of the boundaries of this kingdom because you guys are fools, and I'm not going to expose myself to that. You may find that that's the case after your introspection. That is there. That is wise. There's a wisdom in that also. And just as Vidura does, give your people the benefit of the doubt first and give them a chance to have a conversation. Hey, here's what I see that I think, there's something off about this, and I'd like to talk about it with you. How do you feel about it? Do you feel something's off as well? What's your sense? And oftentimes you'll find the other person is also having tough feelings about you. They had their own list of reasons why you're so fallen and bad and wrong. And in your conversation together, then there's some smoothing, right? There's a mutual empathy. There's a realization that we're all just struggling here and trying to do the right thing and oftentimes messing up, but the sincerity is there. And so there's a reconciliation that can happen. But occasionally you may find that, like Vidura, you have to set a clear boundary and leave that situation or be very firm in what is okay or not okay and hold the person to that. Um, but it always begins with first removing yourself from the immediate kind of push of the emotion and trying to find where is that insight that can help me use my intelligence, inform my intelligence to make a good decision.
Thank you very
Is that
much.
helpful?
This is very helpful.
Okay, I'm glad. I invite us to stop or pause. I don't want to keep going just because, don't feel obliged just because you know that I'll continue to talk. I'll leave it to the moderators. I think we're good there then.
Yeah, I think we can take the silence as
Okay.
yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you all very
Prabhuji.
much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. We look forward to your class again, like probably next month or something like we talked. But I like touch base again and plan out
Yeah,
something.
fabulous. Yeah, stay in touch. I'll look forward to the next time. So should we just do kind of like chapter by chapter, or you all will study a little bit as well each week, and then next time it'll be a little down the road?
I would think so. That's how like we meet every Sunday, Prabhuji, and
Okay,
read like for an hour or so. But it's not as insightful as like the discussion that we had with you today. Uh, but it's every weekend, so
good.
hopefully
Yeah,
by
good.
next weekend we'll have progressed a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, you'll have made some walk down the pilgrimage path.
Yeah,
Okay, very good. Wonderful to spend some time with you all. Happy Saturday. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri
thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhuji.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Haribo.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari. Thank you all.